What on God's name does that have to do with love on the spectrum? It doesn't. It means nothing. How do you think that was acceptable? How do you think that was appropriate? On this video, we're continuing the marathon of sitting through all 6 episodes of Love on the Spectrum US to dissect them from an actually autistic point of view. So stand by to have a nervous breakdown. Welcome back. It's great to see you again. And for those that are new to my channel, welcome. I hope you can join this community that we call Orion Kelly, that autistic guy. Why do we call it that? Anyway, I'm Orion Kelly, that autistic guy. That's why. I get it now. And since my adult diagnosis, I've devoted my time to advocating for the autistic community. And we do that. Technically, I do that, but we do that through podcasts and these YouTube videos. My goal is to raise a level of understanding, acceptance, and appreciation of the autistic community. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, well, I would be delighted if you take the time to subscribe to my YouTube channel. You're joining a community instantaneously. You can hang out, chat, share ideas and thoughts, support each other, and check out this content too. And I also really do appreciate it, not only taking the time to subscribe to the channel, but just a simple thumbs up, a comment, or sharing it with family and friends so we can reach more people. And if you're looking for more content, more about me, a place to send me a direct message, go to my website, orionkelly.com.au. Love on the Spectrum US, Season 1, Episode 3. After her unforgettable experience at speed dating, Kaylin debriefs with her housemate about the dudes she met. And she goes through the list. You've seen the speed dates. You know what goes down. The only thing I want to point out from this particular scene, sorry, it's not a reality show, it's a documentary. From this particular observation, this is a really important one. Okay, so we talked about this in previous episodes about disclosing to other people you don't know about, your diagnosis. And there's a great story. So Kaylin, for starters, she says, Peter, he's the guy, we like Peter, we like Pete. And they talk about disclosure. She mentions it wasn't called for or relevant or no one asked for it. So no, I didn't mention anything about it. And then she goes on to say that, my experiences have told me this is not the thing you should do from past experiences. And she provided the story when she went on a date. She talks about going on a date with a guy who was a firefighter. She took her service dog on a first date. And at first she thought it would make common sense that because she works in training service dogs, that she was bringing a service dog as a trainer. But because of the service dog being there at the date, this particular fireman, this particular date, kept pushing and prodding until she finally said, well, I'm autistic, this is my service dog. And the response she received was him abruptly standing up and leaving the date, blocking her number, never to talk to her again. So we can understand the issues here with disclosure. If you meet someone as an autistic person who might not be autistic, or clearly isn't, and you feel connected to them, there's a lot of issues to go through here. If I disclose straight away, I give myself potentially no chance to ever get to know them. Or if I don't disclose, I put myself at risk of coming across deceptive down the track. But either way, it will blow up in my face. There is no right or wrong here. And you can see the struggles of dating as an autistic person. Stand by, my friends. King Solomon and Danny, date number 2. The first thing, and I'm not going to go through and review the date. It's more about the representation and the things we can pick up. So, what I'll say is, this is an insight into a lot of autistic people. Okay, you don't have to be Canadian to apologize or say sorry all the time. Hey, I'm also a Canadian citizen, so I can make that joke. Nevertheless, you notice how Solomon will say things and then he'll constantly, I'm sorry, he'll apologize. And it's so interesting because it's not often you'll hear that in a date situation. Every time you say something, you apologize for it in case it's, so you can see too that this might not even be coming from a good place. Solomon may have lived a life where every time he says things, from his heart and his autistic mind, people will get offended for no reason and he has to apologize. It doesn't have to come from a good place, but it's a good insight. Uh-oh, looks like Danny and Solomon have entered a rose garden. All I'll say about this, if you're going to enter a rose garden, understand there will be pricks. Just watch out for the pricks. Good advice. Oh, look, saved by James. Thanks for saving us, James. That got a bit tricky. Back at home after his first date, and it's interesting because James is seated and his mum and dad are standing. It's an odd situation. If you want to talk to someone, you should probably just be on their level. Anyways, I don't know why I had to point that out. It just seemed manufactured to me. And anyway, here comes one of the great conversations of all time, the parents asking their adult autistic son how his date went. and what an interaction. Now, for autistic parents and carers of autistic young people, so autistic people dating, you may even be friends of an adult autistic person dating. When they start to act like James does, which in many ways is him vocally regulating and stimming and making the kind of sounds he's making, it's because this whole thing is hard to process. There's too many emotions coming up from all the questions and prodding, and it's becoming, uncomfortable, dysregulated. These are the times when you shut up. You don't just keep asking questions about the date and this and that. And then also too, there's nothing worse than sometimes when parents, they don't do it maliciously, but they almost like patronize in a childish way. Like, oh, you look so happy. Oh, yeah. No. No. The best part is when he shows the photo of him and his date, and the first thing James says, I guess my hair looks okay. My hair looks okay, doesn't it? It's like, you're showing the picture of her, mate. Hey, look, it's Abby at home with her mum, having a bit of a chat. It turns to age. Abby the dude off camera asks Abby what's been happening or what's news. Insightful, man. And you know what she gives him? I'm a quarter of a century in 2023. What's news? What's happening? Yeah, that's happening in a year. But still, it's interesting because Abby comes up with this genuine concern about turning 25, right? And I don't know about you, but as an autistic person, this doesn't go away. Like, I legitimately never can get to a peaceful, comfortable place about aging or getting old. I just can't do it. I don't know about you, but there's something about it. I feel like, no, I don't want to be old. Sometimes I think maybe it's because, when you live as an autistic person, it can wear you down and there's a lot of barriers and challenges. And in a way, you kind of feel like in your 20s, you feel already like in your 50s, like in 30s, 60s, and 40s, 70s. You really do. I mean, I know that sounds stupid, but you really do feel like 30 years older than you are because of what you've gone through. Honestly, it's just a tiresome dread. And, that idea of everyone will get old and everyone will age. And it's not something I'm still even prepared to consider. Abby and David get another date and they're both excited about it. There's no question about that. There's a kind of some weird comment in there that I don't understand. Abby says something like she can't really carry her stuffed lions or whatever because they're going to a park with lions and tigers and bears, I believe. Oh my. And she says because that's not mature, it's immature. Says who? What, says your mum? Says your parents? If you want to carry toys or soft toys or like it's the same as saying if that's immature, then how do you justify stimming tools or stimming toys? Because even adults that have stimming tools, they still look like toys, right? So they look immature. Why are you fidgeting all the time? You're such a child. So this idea of someone telling Abby that it's immature to take, I don't see how that's useful. Just do what works for you. Just be yourself. Back to Solomon and Danny's date. And don't worry, guys. They've made it completely unharmed out of the rose garden. Now they've got to that kind of romantic sitting down on the rugs and cushions and having some yummy champagne. Okay. Now what's interesting is in the opening of it and the pouring, Solomon talks about how it's not something he really knows how to do, and Danny does, and he says, oh, that's could you teach me a skill? This would be great. And Danny says something like, did your parents not teach you how to do this kind of stuff? And this is a great point. This isn't about Danny and Solomon. You might hear this, as a parent and carer, you might hear your kids or your adult kids say, you never taught me these things. Why didn't you teach me these things? And there's a couple of things to point out here. Number one, as an autistic person, I can say the same thing to my parents. You didn't teach me anything. Like, I don't know how to do anything. What were you doing? And then as a parent of an autistic child, to that I can say, we were doing keeping you alive. We were keeping you alive. You're lucky you're still here. We worked day and night just to keep you alive. Now, this is important for further episodes. In this second date, now this is the second date, not the first date, the second date, that Danny has gone on with Solomon. Danny has willingly and knowingly said, yep, I like you. In fact, I think I love you in the first date. And let's go on another date. Now, in this second date, Danny says, I'm love struck. What does that mean? Solomon says, it means I'm still in love with you. Like, that's a massive thing to say to someone, let alone on the second date. So I'm just putting this out there because when you say these types of things, you put yourself in some troubled waters. Either you're being open and honest in the moment, or you are, potentially completely conflicted in your mind, or you're just plain leading someone on. Finally, we can meet and talk about one of the great characters of all time on Love on the Spectrum, Steve. How good is Steve? Steve should be on the radio. He should be on the radio yesterday. What a voice. And what's really interesting, and for adults that maybe are not yet diagnosed or are seeking diagnosis or suspect they're autistic, Steve is a great role model. He is, I believe, 63 and talks about only being diagnosed a couple of years ago. So let's assume Steve was diagnosed either in his late 50s or pretty much at 60. That's late in life. People always say, what's the point? Like you're married, you've got kids. Why'd you wait till you're like an adult? What's the difference? You've got everything you need. This is the case in point. The man is 63 years young and he's received a diagnosis only recently. But I guarantee these are the things you don't understand, the benefits of them. Sure, there's downsides, but the benefits of finally understanding or being given the opportunity to understand who you are. So Steve is a phenomenally great inclusion. In fact, I think the Australian version of Love on the Spectrum, and I've said this to the people that make the show when I've had a phone call with them, needs to have a more diverse range of not only people themselves, more diversity of people, but also diversity of age and also diversity of point in relationship. If it's called Love on the Spectrum, for example, why are there cameras, say, like following me and my family around? Because I have a wife, right? I'm on the spectrum. People want to see Love on the Spectrum in its full journey. Can I also say, and this is actually another really important thing, a great inclusion is the idea that here is a grown man, right? A 60-something-year-old autistic man, and we are openly on the show seeing him interact with he refers to her as his assistant, I think, personal assistant. I think in many ways, from an Australian context, we would class that as a support worker. So someone who is there to support you in the community, and this kind of stuff can be very expensive. Some countries fund it, some don't, but this is an inclusion that's good. People need to understand support workers aren't just for kids. The idea that Steve can live the best possible quality of life, fulfill his quality of life with the support and care of others is crucial and critical until the day an autistic person dies. It doesn't go away. So this is good. These interactions are good. And sure, they help him set up the dating, take the photos, get on the online profile. They enable him and help him, and that's the point. Warning, this part of the video gets real heated, real quick, and I'll tell you why in just a sec. I'm just putting it out there. I'm just warning you. This is the part that made my blood boil to the point where my blood evaporated and went into the clouds and rained down blood upon me. We're in Sabod's house, and the dude behind the camera, as always, doesn't he have some great stuff, asks Sabod, what do you like to talk about at dates? Now, I believe Sabod says mathematics, and the dude behind the camera says, why is that? Are you good at it? Okay, now for starters, there's something about this that doesn't feel right. Given the remainder of the conversation, I find it hard to believe that this wasn't in some way staged or scripted. It can't be though, because it's not a reality TV show, right? You'd have to pay them if it was. It's a documentary. Put all that aside, here's my issue. In 2022, on a show that's worldwide, the US version, which clearly will have the biggest audience ever, broadcast on one of the biggest streaming platforms of all time, is in effect taking us back to what we want to say, the 1960s? At best, the 1980s. And I'll tell you why the 1980s, because there's a movie called Rain Man. Okay, now in this, not Rain Man, in Love on the Spectrum, the dude behind the camera says, once he says, are you good at maths? And Spot says, yes. It cuts straight to him asking maths questions, like a firing off of equations. Okay, and Sabod answers them all, presumably correct. And then it escalates. What day was it? On, the 19th of October, 1980. We've seen this scene. It's called Rain Man. Hey, drop the matches. Well, how many matches are there, Raymond? How many matches did you see? Really? There's that many matches? How many? Do it again. Raymond, do it again. How many matches do you see? Wow, how'd you do that? How'd you count those matches? Can you do that with cards? Can you remember the cards? You know what we should do? We should go to Vegas. We should do some card counting. I'll use and manipulate my autistic relative while basically coercing them into engaging in criminal activity for the financial gain and benefit of me. You're doing Rain Man. Love on the Spectrum are doing Rain Man. Sabod does not need to, as some sort of Rain Man type scene, some sort of show for the masses. Hey, come and see the freak, right? That's what it is. Hey, here's this number. What's this mean? What's this add up to? What day of the week was this? What year is this? What month was that? What season was this? Well, what are you doing? What is this? Seriously, if you don't find this upsetting, if you don't get angry that in 2022, we are watching basically a repurposing of scenes out of Rain Man from the 80s, where we're getting an autistic person to count things, to use their mathematical skills or their memory skills or whatever. Sabod's clearly gifted. Sabod clearly has some incredible savant-like skills. But that doesn't define him. And what on God's name does that have to do with finding love? With love on the spectrum? It doesn't. It means nothing. It's Rain Man. It's Rain Man. Rain Man is not a good representation. How do you think that was acceptable? How do you think that was appropriate? Any more mathematical questions for him before you go? Before he gets to go on a date and finds love? Let's ask him more mathematical questions. Oh, the people are going to love this. To the detriment of an entire class of people. A disabled minority of autistic people being exploited for some sort of bizarre gain. And in fact, how is it different to the character in the movie? We're exploiting him for the entertainment of the masses and for the financial gain of organisations. No, he's not Rain Man. This is not Rain Man. This is horrible. You know what? I quit this crap. I quit this reviewing crap. I'm over it. So seriously, I can do this and you don't. What are you doing about it? You're watching this. What are you doing about it? Do you agree with me? Okay, cool, but you've watched them all, right? Are you watching them? Like, what are you doing about it? How are you helping me? What are you spreading this around to let people know this is not acceptable? Or are you just watching it, having a laugh, me getting all heated and ranty and then turning off? What's the point? How many times do I have to yell from the rooftops that we are exploiting autistic people for the entertainment of the masses and the financial gain of organisations? What? And we're not even paying them properly. Seriously, what's the point of me doing this? Anyway, Sabod goes on a date. He meets a fantastic young lady. You know, they hit it off. They have a date. They enjoy themselves. I'm just moving on. This has got nothing to do with Sabod. You know that. I don't need to go through this again. Okay, I'm just going to push. You know what? Stuff the rest of this episode. I just want to finish on one thing, okay? And then I don't know what the point of me doing these anymore is. If nothing ever changes and no one ever cares, it makes no sense. Like, this actually takes a lot of time and effort. Like to record this one review video, it probably took me. I probably recorded it over the space of 2 hours and edited it for probably a day. So like, you don't. At the end, Danny calls Solomon and breaks up with him. Now, this is the stuff I talked about before. Date one, I'm in love you. Date two, love struck, I'm still in love with you. Don't want to kiss you, kisses him. Don't want to kiss you again, kisses him again. To his face, says this feels great. To the camera and to her family, this is not right, we don't fit. This isn't a corporate hiring process. And again, earlier in the episode, we see the relationship coach with Sabod. At a sophistication level, the relationship coach could do as much, if not much more good in the corner of Danny. In effect, watching episode 3 can give... This is why Danny is the new Michael, right? It just gives us the, like we don't feel sad for Danny so much as we feel like Danny led him on. She led Solomon on and then dumped him because he wouldn't be a good employee for her animation company. This isn't about Danny. It's about the relationship coach. If we really want to help everyone and not just pick and choose, the relationship coach could have actually explained in a way her auntie and uncle cannot, that some of these expectations are not realistic. In fact, they're not even appropriate. Your life as animation, great. My wife's life is not my life, as in she has a career, I have a career and a passion. They're not even remotely the same. And that's why it's great. Danny has done nothing wrong, but she has never been given the types of conversations, advice, and insights from other people that could help her. And look what it ends in. I get that the full phone call isn't until episode 4, but we know what happens in episode 3. We're not compatible. This relationship isn't compatible. She calls Solomon and breaks up with him after 2 dates of telling him really, really big things like love and holding hands and kissing and telling him things that give you no other signal than this person is genuinely interested in me. To go from those things to dumping someone is not a good result for anyone. And again, this isn't about Danny, it's about how it looks for autistic people and for Danny through this show. This show has given me the impression that she has done nothing but lead him on and then dump him, break his heart. If we just use the people on the show that are there for a reason, why is the love coach or the relationship coach only there for some people? It's ridiculous. It's consistency. Are some more deserving of love than others? It doesn't make any sense. Or do we just need certain characters to spice up the narrative and the storyline, which is strange because it's not a reality show, it's a documentary. Episode 4, 5, and 6, yet to be reviewed. This is, like I said, why? Why? What's the point? If you want me to review episode 4, 5, and 6, because you feel like it's something you need and you can actually be a part of some sort of movement towards change, then you can tell me in the comments down below. But from my point of view, I just don't see the point. Once again, these are just my own thoughts and opinions, my own beliefs and observations as an actually autistic guy. So thank you so much for watching this video. There's a heap more to check out if you'd like to check out other reviews I've done of Love on the Spectrum or completely unrelated videos on just life as an autistic person. Please go and check them out. Subscribe to my channel. Thanks again for watching. Until next time, your support really does mean the world to me. So thank you so much. We'll talk soon.